Marcia, we're here talking about onboarding, and during the onboarding process, we often find that businesses have ticking time bombs in their QuickBooks file. The data is wrong and they're making decisions based on inaccurate information. Now, tell me, how is that possible? What percentage is that of the time do we find that?
We find about 85% of the time.
85%.
85% clients come in with some kind of mess in their balance sheet.
How is that possible?
A lot of times, they have a bookkeeper that is self-taught that they've brought on, and they just don't know what they don't know.
The accounting rules.
Right.
So what's the difference? I mean, what does an accountant do that a bookkeeper wouldn't do?
So bookkeepers are mainly focused on paying the bills, making sure billing goes out, and reconciling the bank account. They're not focused on the entire balance sheet. So that means sales tax, payroll tax, other loans and liabilities that might be booked on the P&L when they should be booked on the balance sheet.
Which means that your P&L is wrong and your balance sheet is wrong.
Yes.
And so what does an accountant do? How do you fix that?
So accountant will come in and they will put in a month-end close process. They're going to reconcile every single balance sheet on your balance sheet.
Every single month.
Every single month.
And that means that your income statement's going to be right. So what does that mean, right? When you come in and you see that the balance sheet is screwed up, nobody's been paying attention to it, the bookkeeper's just doing transaction processing, there's no month-end close process. What does that mean to a business owner? Why do they care?
So a lot of business owners make decisions on their profit and loss. And if your profit and loss is incorrect, you're making bad business decisions.
That sounds scary. Has that ever happened? I mean, what have you found?
We've actually just come across a new client that came in and they hadn't paid their payroll taxes. They're not even registered with the state, but they're collecting sales tax. So we've got a big project of cleanup that needs to happen in order to get registered with the state, and then also to get those payroll taxes paid on time.
So what's the implication of that, right? They've been doing okay so far. Why does it make a difference why do they have to pay us to go clean up the books?
Well, one, you want to make sure that you're in compliance with the government. I think that's the biggest reason. We want to make sure that those payroll taxes are paid on time so that there's no fines and penalties assessed.
And you can go to jail, right? Because if you collect sales taxes and you don't remit it, the IRS puts more people in jail, I think, than the FBI.
Yeah.
So and what about decisions, right? So they're not looking at their P&Ls and they're wrong. What does that matter? I mean, how does that impact their lives?
Yeah, so we also had another company come in that they hadn't downloaded their credit card account in over a year. So they thought they were making big profits, and so they had a decision to go open up another store location. And what they found was once we imported all those credit card charges and got them posted to the general ledger, that they weren't really making as much money as they had hoped.
Wow, so they were paying bills on a credit card. They're going on to the bank to pay off the credit card, but all those transactions weren't on the P&L?
They weren't.
So they thought they had money that they didn't have. That's a nightmare. That's my worst nightmare. So what did we do for them?
So we helped them get it cleaned up, and then we also put a procedure in place to keep it up to date on an ongoing basis.
I love it. So now they have actionable financial reports they can rely upon at their fingertips. That's great. Isn't it great?
It's great.
That's awesome. So, ticking time bombs are not just the fact that the numbers are wrong, but it could be that people are getting ripped off. Is that what? Tell me, you see this a lot. Tell me what you found.
We do. So the biggest piece around fraud is payroll. We actually had a client that came in and their office manager was the person responsible for processing payroll. They were processing payroll in two different systems, one in QuickBooks and one in a third-party system. And
like ADP?
Like ADP or Paychex. And what we found out was they were actually paying themselves through QuickBooks and the third-party system.
Oh my goodness.
And then deleting the check actually inside of QuickBooks.
So how did we find it?
So we started by reviewing the balance sheet and noticed a big negative balance in direct deposit liabilities, which if you're using QuickBooks Online Payroll, direct deposit liabilities should be zero.
Right. It's the taxes you received and the payments you received, and then when you pay the government, it zeroes it out.
Right.
And that wasn't zero.
It wasn't. And so what we did is as soon as we found that, we started doing audit trails in the system and found out that one of the individuals was deleting those paychecks in the system.
Oh my God. So unless the CEO is looking at what's the account?
Direct deposit liabilities.
Oh, I mean, I didn't even know we had an account called direct deposit liabilities if I'm the CEO. Unless they're looking at that, you'll never see it.
Right.
So what I'm hearing is that Growth Force's onboarding process will clean up those ticking time bombs, right? They'll make the financial reports correct. They'll also help identify places where you might be getting ripped off. And we'll set up the policies and procedures to make sure it stays that way going forward. Is that what you got?
Yes.
So let's summarize. In onboarding, you're going to find ticking time bombs inside of the QuickBooks file. And why is that helpful?
So with our onboarding process, we're going to get things cleaned up. We're going to make sure that you have a standardized month-end checklist and then the policies and procedures that align with that, which is going to help ensure that you don't run into these messes again.
And you don't get ripped off again.
Right.
I love it.